I want to start today with a story. It's about a ghost.
Oh.
Not a literal one. It's the kind that haunts high achievers. So let's call this person Alex. Alex spent a decade, maybe more, just laser focused on one thing, one number.
His FI number.
Exactly. His financial independence number. He was doing everything right, aggressive saving, optimizing every single expense. And year after year, he's watching that net worth just climb and climb, getting closer to the goal.
The finish line.
The finish line.
Yeah.
The moment where the math proves he never has to work another day in his life. He was supposed to feel, total freedom.
Of course. That's the promise.
But the day it happened, the day he actually crossed it, he looked at the figures and saw the number. And he felt nothing. Well, not nothing. He was hit by this profound, just crushing wave of anxiety.
Wow. So the opposite of relief.
The complete opposite. He had all the money. On paper, he was richer than he'd ever been.
Yeah.
But that emotional drive, the thing that fueled his whole journey, it didn't just turn off.
It had to go somewhere.
It morphed. It became this toxic compulsion. He had the wealth, but he still had the fever. He'd built this incredible financial fortress, but he hadn't built the inner peace to actually live inside it.
That's a powerful way to put it.
So that's the real question, isn't it? Why does the finish line move the very second you cross it? Why does accumulating more and more money sometimes feel less like collecting freedom and more like just collecting stress?
We are so conditioned to believe that's the answer.
Relentlessly. By our culture, and maybe even more by our own biology, to think that wealth is just this state of perpetual accumulation, a number that has to go up forever. But if that chase only leads to the anxiety that Alex felt, then true wealth can't be an ever-increasing number. It has to be something else.
A state of sufficiency.
A precisely defined state of sufficiency. So the deepest, most critical question for anyone on this path, for you listening, isn't just how do I hit the target faster? It's how do we actually define our personal enough? That emotional sweet spot where all the excessive effort can finally end and real contentment begins. Why does finding that internal threshold matter so much more than just hitting some technical financial number?
It's the whole game.
Welcome to today's deep dive here on Project Fire. We are unpacking that ultimate paradox of wealth, the psychological shift you have to make to find genuine contentment and, lasting financial freedom.
And that experience you described with Alex where the goalpost just moves on you, that is probably the single most dangerous psychological trap facing anyone in the FIRE community today. It's what behavioral scientists call the hedonic treadmill. And it's just this relentless emotional drain.
Okay, let's unpack that. The hedonic treadmill. It sounds exhausting just from the name, and I think for a lot of people, it really explains that deep disconnect between achieving success and actually feeling happy.
It is exhausting because it's an adaptation mechanism. It ensures that humans we rapidly neutralize any new level of success or any material thing we get.
So the high wears off fast.
Almost instantly. That rush of happiness from a new job, a huge raise, moving into a bigger house, it evaporates. Your baseline happiness just resets, which means yesterday's luxury is now today's, expected normal. It's a constant psychological reset button, just demanding more.
And you see this so clearly with lifestyle creep.
Oh, absolutely. That's the mechanism in action. Your income rises, so your spending follows, not because you need more, but because your mind just adjusts its expectations upward.
The small, efficient car suddenly feels inadequate.
It becomes a luxury SUV. The starter home becomes the custom build. Dining out twice a month becomes 3 times a week, but at fancier places. The point is, that thing you bought 6 months ago because it made you feel successful, it quickly just becomes the basic necessity you need just to feel level.
And for someone pursuing financial independence, that is so dangerous. You need that gap between income and spending to be massive.
But you're racing against a psychological mechanism that is designed to raise your spending floor forever. And if your spending is always rising as fast as your income, which, the treadmill is basically designed to guarantee, you never build real wealth. It doesn't matter if your salary doubles or triples.
So you feel like you're making no progress.
None at all. People feel like they're just stuck. Even though they're earning dramatically more than they were 5 years ago, they're just running faster on the treadmill, staying in the same place.
What's so fascinating here is that it's not just, societal conditioning. There's a deep biological reason for this. It's how our brains are wired.
It is entirely biological. And this is where we can turn to something called the incentive sensitization theory of craving. It really explains this painful loop of, well, perpetual dissatisfaction.
Okay.
The theory shows that there are two distinct systems operating in the brain when we're seeking rewards. You've got the wanting system and you've got the liking system.
Wanting and liking. They sound similar, but I'm guessing they're not.
Very different. The wanting system is driven by dopamine. And this is a key point. Dopamine isn't the pleasure chemical we all thought it was. It's the seeking chemical.
The anticipation.
Exactly. And this system gets sensitized very easily, meaning it becomes easier and easier to trigger that desire for the next hit of validation, whether that's money or a social media like or a new possession. Your brain gets really, really good at reminding you what you don't have.
So the drive to earn the next million or get the next promotion isn't really about the pleasure of having it. It's about that intense dopamine-fueled chase.
Absolutely. But here's the really cruel part of the whole thing. The liking system, our actual pleasure-based system, it adapts downward.
What does that mean?
It means due to things like, receptor fatigue and habituation, you need significantly more stimulation just to feel the same baseline level of enjoyment you felt before. The goals shift from genuinely enjoying the experience to just chasing the number itself.
So you're in this exhausting cycle. You're biologically wired to crave more, but you're psychologically adapting to enjoy what you get less and less.
You're always seeking a higher dose for the same effect.
Exactly.
And the outcome of this loop is, well, it's pretty bleak. When you obsessively check those external metrics, your stock portfolio, social media likes, your net worth, you feel bad no matter what happens.
How so?
Well, if the number is the same, you panic that you're stagnating. If it's down, you panic that you're losing momentum. And even if it's up, your brain instantly pivots to panicking about how you can keep it going up.
No, there's no winning.
The only constant in that entire loop is the internal suffering, the anxiety of maintaining your status.
Wow. That completely reframes the entire goal of building wealth. If just accumulating forever guarantees this kind of suffering, then the only way out is to define a limit, a conscious, self-imposed limit.
It has to be.
And that pushes us right into the core psychological battle here, moving from a mindset that's rooted in fear to one that's rooted in, well, trust.
The scarcity mind.
We have to talk about the scarcity mindset, because this is the foundational belief that hedonic treadmill just feeds on. It's a belief system that is rooted entirely in fear. This deep, deep idea that there is never enough money, never enough time, never enough opportunity.
And it's more subtle than just being frugal or cheap. It's that little voice inside, the one that whispers, I can't afford that, or I have to save every single penny.
Even when the numbers say otherwise.
Even when you're looking at a really robust portfolio and you could technically afford it 10 times over. And this mindset can go all the way back to childhood or financial trauma. And crucially, it has nothing to do with your actual income level. You can be a millionaire operating from a mindset of absolute poverty and fear.
And the psychological cost of living that way must be immense.
It is. It instills this deep existential fear that no matter how much you save, no matter how much you earn, it will never be enough to be truly safe.
Which leads to crippling financial anxiety.
Anxiety, decision paralysis, and that constant painful comparison with others, which, as we just discussed, only fuels more seeking and more suffering.
So the scarcity mindset actually makes you a worse decision maker.
Regardless of your resources.
Yeah.
Because your decisions are based on an emotional reaction fear instead of a rational calculation or a strategy. You hesitate on good investments, you hoard cash when you shouldn't, you make impulsive buys to deal with stress.
So what's the alternative?
The alternative is the abundance mindset, or what we're calling the enough mindset for this discussion. And this isn't just, blind optimism. It's a positive but realistic attitude.
Right.
It views money not as a threat that you have to hoard and protect, but as a strategic tool, a tool for growth, for resilience, for well-being.
So it's grounded in confidence, not fear.
Exactly. Confidence and resilience. People who operate from this place, they make proactive long-term decisions because they trust their future. They trust their ability to handle setbacks. And, crucially, they align their spending with their core values.
Which gives them a sense of control.
Control and integrity. They see a market dip as temporary. They see debt as a solvable problem, not a life sentence.
This brings us to what I think is a core principle for Project FIRE. Mindset trumps mathematics. Financial success is, at the end of the day, a behavioral outcome. It's driven by mindset.
Absolutely. We see it all the time. People with pretty modest incomes building these incredibly robust portfolios. Why? Because they consistently refuse to operate from a place of fear.
They've discipline.
Discipline, strategy, and self-trust. That belief that you can recover from a setback, that's the cornerstone. You have to believe success is possible, and you have to define what that success actually looks like for you before you can ever achieve it sustainably.
Okay, so if we can make that shift from fear-driven scarcity to, let's say, value-driven sufficiency,
Yeah.
what does that actually do for our happiness? I mean, on a scientific level, this brings us right to that central debate, doesn't it? The money-happiness tipping point.
It does. And this is such a pivotal moment in behavioral economics because for years the research on this felt contradictory. It was unsatisfying.
Right, you had the famous Kahneman and Deaton study from 2010.
Exactly, which suggested that happiness basically plateaued once your income hit about $75,000 a year.
But then new research came out.
Then came Killingsworth's work, which found that happiness actually kept rising steadily well beyond that number. So it created a lot of confusion. Is more money helpful or not?
And the way they resolved this is fascinating.
It really is. They did something pretty rare in science called an adversarial collaboration.
Meaning the scientists who disagreed with each other teamed up.
The conflicting experts, Kahneman, Deaton, and Killingsworth, they all got together to run new research. And the results gave us this really nuanced truth. It applies differently depending on your existing emotional well-being.
Okay, so before we get into the exceptions, what's the general trend they found?
The general trend is pretty clear. For most people, larger incomes are, in fact, associated with greater overall happiness and life satisfaction. And this could go up to as much as $500,000 a year.
So that completely dismantles the old idea that once your bills are paid, more money doesn't matter.
It does. For the majority of people, money does seem to increase the feeling of control and opportunity for a very, very long time. However, we have to zoom in on what the sources call the $100,000 stress alleviation threshold.
A stress alleviation threshold, what did that mean?
It means that for a specific group, the cohort reporting the lowest emotional well-being, about 15 to 20% of people, there's a very specific pattern.
Okay.
Their happiness rises sharply as their income climbs up, but only up to about $100,000. Once they hit that benchmark, their happiness shows absolutely no further increase as income grows. Sometimes it even dips a little. The curve just goes completely flat.
So for this group, money is effective at getting rid of the acute suffering of being low income. The anxiety over bills, affording food, that daily exhaustion, but it can't, by itself, fix deeper internal problems.
That is precisely it. The researchers figured that money successfully removes the external causes of misery, like poverty-related stress, but it cannot independently fix internal challenges, things like unresolved trauma, relationship problems, heartbreak, clinical depression, or just a profound lack of purpose.
So if you have those issues, making $200,000 or $500,000 doesn't make them go away.
Not at all. There's a key quote from the research that is so applicable here. If you're rich and miserable, more money won't help. Money is a powerful stress alleviator, but it is not a cure for internal suffering.
That distinction is so critical. So if money only fixes misery up to a certain point for that cohort, then we have to look at what the happiest people are doing differently to keep increasing their joy.
And that's the inverse trend, which is so instructive. For the people who are already in the middle or top 30% of emotional well-being, the generally happy group, their happiness continues to increase or even accelerate above that $100,000 level.
Why? What's the difference?
It's because for them, money isn't being used to escape suffering. It's being used to amplify purpose and positive experiences.
Ah, okay.
Once that $100,000 mark minimizes the basic suffering, the ability of more money to increase your happiness depends entirely on your existing sense of purpose, your psychological well-being, and this is key, how you spend that extra money.
So what are they spending it on?
They're buying more time, they're funding more purpose-driven experiences, they're creating more opportunities for connection.
So money is a determinant of happiness, but it is not the only one. Once your basic material anxiety is gone, the return on investment you get from the next $100,000 depends entirely on your psychological foundation.
Exactly. If you have a sense of purpose, strong relationships, if you practice gratitude, then the extra money lets you amplify all of those things. But if you have those internal voids, the money just sits there. It can't fill them. It just becomes another source of status anxiety.
The relevance for Project FIRE couldn't be clearer. Achieving financial security, it minimizes suffering. It buys you freedom from a bad job, from a paycheck, from that crushing financial anxiety.
What?
But achieving contentment, that true, peaceful state of enough, that requires you to actively cultivate your purpose and your psychological well-being at the same time as you build your wealth.
You can't just delegate the hard work of finding happiness and purpose to your investment portfolio. It doesn't work that way.
You know, this idea that we have to cultivate our inner wealth just as diligently as our financial portfolios, it's not new, is it?
Yeah.
You can find the blueprints for this enough mindset thousands of years ago.
Oh, absolutely. To really anchor this concept of sufficiency, we have to turn to the ancient philosophers. They didn't have index funds or 401ks, but they understood the dangers of perpetual accumulation on a deep, deep level.
They saw the exact same fever we talked about with Alex just 2 millennia ago.
For sure. Seneca, the great Stoic, he specifically challenged the conventional definition of wealth. He looked around and saw that many rich people were profoundly miserable, and his diagnosis was, the fever has us.
The fever.
They obsess over acquisition, they constantly worry about public opinion, they lose control of their lives by letting their tastes escalate, their desires just grow faster than their fortunes. And Seneca's conclusion was that the money doesn't belong to them, they belong to the money.
Wow.
And this led to the fundamental Stoic definition of poverty, which is, well, it's just wanting more than you have.
So it's not about the number in your bank account.
Not at all. It doesn't matter if you have a massive estate and 3 private chefs. If you are still craving the next promotion, the next possession, the next level of luxury, you are impoverished. Conversely, true wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants.
That perfectly captures the idea of the moving goalpost that we started with. The minute you hit 5 million, the scarcity mind immediately asks, well, why not 10 million, just to be safe?
And Seneca basically gave us the first definition of a fire number that is designed to stop moving. He called it the stopping point.
A stopping point.
He wrote that the person who has enough has attained that which never fell to the rich man's lot, a stopping point. That internal state of sufficiency, that feeling of I have done enough and I am enough, that is the ultimate psychological goal. It's what breaks the hedonic loop.
And this search for sufficiency is tied to the ultimate Stoic virtue.
Right.
It's self-sufficiency.
Absolutely. It means focusing your mental energy and your attention only on the things that are within your control. Your wisdom, your character, your decisions, not external validation like applause or riches or social status.
When you stop creating those external dependencies in your life, you gain a huge amount of flexibility and strength.
Immense strength. If your happiness relies on a specific stock price, you're dependent. If your happiness relies on your character and your ability to endure, you're free.
It's like mental armor against market volatility. But how did they recommend you actually practice breaking that dependency? How do you build that kind of resilience?
Through a key mental technique, the practice of voluntary hardship.
Voluntary hardship.
Seneca recommended setting aside certain days, frequently, where you'd content yourself with the cheapest food, with coarse and rough clothes. You'd consciously experience the discomfort of having the bare minimum.
So this isn't about saving money. It's about psychologically preparing for the worst-case scenario.
It's mental immunization. The whole purpose of practicing poverty, whether it's Seneca's version or a modern CEO deciding to sleep on the floor for a week, is transformative. It's to learn how far poverty is from actually being a crushing burden.
You prove to yourself that you can survive.
You prove that the worst-case financial scenario is survivable, and maybe even comfortable, if you have the right mindset.
Why is that so important for the FIRE journey?
Because it frees you from the fear of failure. Once you internalize that you can survive and even thrive on the minimum, you are no longer chained to a miserable job or a difficult boss or unethical choices just for the sake of holding on to a comfortable subsistence.
Freedom.
Freedom, the ability to decide what you do most days and to do what you think is right, that's the ultimate prize. And voluntary hardship is the training ground for achieving that mental freedom.
Okay, so if Stoicism is about building resilience by confronting fear, Epicureanism offers a sort of complementary path. It's more about achieving tranquility by limiting your desires from the start.
Right, and people get Epicureanism so wrong.
They do. They think it's about hedonistic excess feasting, overindulgence. But it's the exact opposite of the truth. For Epicurus, the highest good wasn't chasing maximum pleasure. It was the avoidance of pain, which he called aponia, and achieving tranquility, or ataraxia.
And tranquility in this context just means removing the sources of mental anxiety, which is precisely what the enough mindset is all about.
Exactly. Epicurus warned that chasing luxury and always wanting more creates what he called vain pleasures.
Vain pleasure.
Appetites that are fundamentally unsatisfiable. They only generate anxiety, not enduring pleasure. Think about the vain pleasure of endlessly upgrading your phone or chasing a status symbol car. The moment you get one, the vanity of wanting the next one immediately starts creating this psychological debt.
It creates that hedonic loop we talked about. If the pursuit of luxury just guarantees a perpetually sensitized wanting system and a habituated liking system, then it actively guarantees you'll be unhappy.
So, true contentment, for Epicurus, is found in simple things. Things that ensure the body and mind remain stable. By limiting your desires to what is natural and necessary, food, shelter, security, especially the company of good friends, that's how you reach the highest form of happiness.
It's the ultimate lean fire philosophy.
It really is. It's about structuring your life to avoid that psychological debt and anxiety by just refusing to develop expensive or complicated tastes in the first place.
So both ancient philosophies, whether you're coming at it from Stoic resilience or Epicurean tranquility, they arrive at the same powerful conclusion. Defining enough means consciously limiting your material desires to maximize your non-material well-being.
Things like time, peace of mind, strong relationships, inner character.
The things that actually matter.
Okay, so we've covered the psychological traps, we've covered the ancient philosophical solutions. Now the big question for everyone listening: how do we translate these profound ideas of sufficiency into a practical, repeatable financial strategy that actually works in the 21st century?
The foundation is shifting our whole perspective on budgeting. We have to stop seeing it as this boring, restrictive thing we do out of deprivation. We need to adopt what we can call values-based budgeting.
Values-based budgeting.
Yeah.
So taking those philosophical principles and applying them to a spreadsheet, what makes that different from just tracking your expenses?
It gives your money meaning and purpose. The key insight is that when you spend money based on what truly matters to you, your behavior and your core values come into this powerful alignment. And that sense of integrity, of purpose, it's a massive boost to your well-being, far more than the momentary hit from an impulse buy.
It lets you feel empowered by your choices, not restricted by them.
Exactly. I mean, the key to happiness with money is to stop spending it on things you don't actually care about. If you don't really enjoy shopping, why are you spending hundreds on fast fashion? If you say you value family, why are you paying for 5 subscriptions you never use instead of saving for a trip to see them?
This requires a brutal level of honesty with yourself. So let's walk through it. What are the practical steps?
First, you have to get excruciatingly clear on what truly matters. Make a list of your core values: freedom, family, travel, health, whatever they are. But you can't just use single words. You have to ask why.
Right. It's not enough to just say health.
No. Let's take sustainability as an example. You might look at your spending and see you're buying a lot of convenient, disposable plastic items, but when you do that values check, you realize your spending is totally counter-aligned with your stated value.
So you have to change the behavior.
You bring it into alignment. You consciously track that spending, you cut it, and you redirect those funds towards, say, a higher quality, long-lasting item or a donation to an environmental nonprofit. You're making choices based on a self-imposed moral code, not just market convenience.
And then comes the really uncomfortable step after you define those values.
The reality check. You have to take an honest look at your actual bank account, your spending over the last 3 months. People often claim to value one thing, like travel, but their statement shows they spend way more on impulsive restaurant meals or subscriptions they forgot about.
And the key is not to judge yourself for that.
Honesty is crucial, and it's okay. You might discover you actually prioritize comfort and immediate gratification more than you thought. And that's fine, as long as your budget starts reflecting that true hierarchy. That allows for intentional spending in those areas.
Okay, so you align your values, then you structure the budget.
Right. First, the non-negotiables. Bills, savings goals, emergency fund, retirement. That all has to be covered automatically. But the critical difference is where the remaining discretionary money goes. If you value personal growth, then saving for that specific high-cost course becomes a motivating line item in your budget.
This really shifts it from deprivation-based frugality to intentional spending. You're using money as a strategic tool, just like the abundance mindset says. So let's get even more concrete. What are some daily strategies for fighting that scarcity mindset and the hedonic treadmill?
The first one, and it's surprisingly effective, is a psychological safety valve. You have to build in a fun budget.
A fun budget.
The all-or-nothing mindset, where every dollar saved is a win and every dollar spent is a failure, it's just not psychologically sustainable. It leads to burnout.
You need to acknowledge that small treats prevent major blowouts.
You do. So you designate a specific guilt-free fun money account. Maybe use a separate card or a digital bank account, and you preload it every month. Whether it's $50 or $300, the goal is simple. Spend that money without guilt, without overthinking.
So if you want the fancy coffee, you just use the fun money card.
And it prevents you from falling back into that mental trap of constant penny pinching. It acts as a psychological release that you need for long-term consistency.
Okay, next up is a classic, but let's view it through this lens of sufficiency. Pay yourself first.
This is how you defeat the stress of discretionary spending.
Right. Automate your savings and your debt repayment goals the instant your paycheck hits. Your 401k, your IRA, aggressive debt paydown. Prioritize your future financial freedom before anything else.
Then whatever money is left in your checking account after all that is automated, that is truly guilt-free discretionary spending. You've met your goals for the month. You can spend the rest knowing you haven't sabotaged your future.
Love that. Okay, after that, we have to actively fight hedonic adaptation with what you call hedonic speed limits.
You have to consciously and formally prevent lifestyle inflation, especially when your income goes up.
So you set predefined rules.
Quantitative rules. Instead of just naturally upgrading every time you get a raise, you commit to saving a high percentage of every pay bump. Maybe 50%, maybe 75%. The rest can be for lifestyle improvements.
For the FIRE audience, that's huge. You're diverting most of a raise straight into your investments.
You're buying confidence and future optionality with that raise, not just a meager cable package. Or you commit to longevity with your possessions. Only upgrade a car every 10 years. Only buy new tech when the old one actually breaks. You are consciously slowing the pace at which luxuries become necessities.
You're keeping the treadmill at a manageable pace. Another great tactic is gamifying goals. If paying off debt feels like a miserable slog, turn it into a challenge.
I love this one. For example, if you love going out, challenge yourself to attend free local events or compete with friends to recreate a favorite restaurant meal at home. And then you track the savings from these things as wins that go straight toward your debt.
And you can still build in small rewards.
Of course. Allow yourself that guilt-free latte on Friday after you successfully made your coffee at home Monday through Thursday. You're still saving money, but you're giving your brain that little treat it needs to stay motivated.
Finally, what might be the most powerful strategy of all, something that goes beyond money entirely, focusing on internal assets.
The power of gratitude. Abundance is the psychological opposite of scarcity, right? And gratitude is the easiest way to access that feeling of abundance instantly.
How do you practice that?
It can be simple. A really actionable practice is just writing down 3 to 5 things you are genuinely thankful for every single morning. It forces your focus to shift from what you think you lack to the resources you already have. Your time, your health, your relationships, your skills.
Self-reflection is huge here too.
Definitely. Take some time to look back at how far you've come. Your first job, your first apartment, all the challenges you've already overcome. Realizing that you have always somehow gotten by with what you had, that builds tremendous self-trust and pride. Right. Which is a key part of the abundance mindset.
And ultimately, this is about recognizing sufficiency in non-material areas.
It is. The key is that when you turn your attention toward your inner resources, love, time, inner strength, resilience, those assets expand and grow. They give you the strength you need to meet challenges without always having to throw money at the problem. You discover that you are already sufficient within yourself. And that is the necessary foundation for lasting peace and for successfully completing the FIRE journey.
We have covered a huge amount of ground today, all the way from the psychological trap of the hedonic treadmill to the tactical strategies of values-based budgeting and ancient wisdom.
And the central synthesis, it remains pretty clear. The shift from maximum accumulation to optimal sufficiency. It's a conscious, active choice. It's about designing a high quality of life with a minimal material footprint.
And maximizing those non-material experiences, time, relationships, self-determination.
Exactly.
And this enough mindset, it applies across every single variation of the FIRE movement. Lean FIRE, fat FIRE, barista FIRE, it doesn't matter. The psychological principles are universal.
The degree of your psychological contentment is what dictates the quality of your independence, regardless of your savings rate. I mean, even the extreme savers pushing 75%, they often struggle the most if they haven't solved the emotional side of this equation.
Because financial independence is valuable for that stoic freedom.
The freedom to decide what you do most days, to pursue your purpose, and just be yourself without needing that external validation or being chained to the fear of loss.
You know, if this deep dive into finding your personal enough has resonated with you, if you recognize that ghost of the hedonic treadmill in your own life, we'd really encourage you to like this discussion. Share it with a friend who might be caught on that same cycle of perpetual seeking, and subscribe to Project FIRE so you never miss another deep dive into financial freedom and human psychology.
And hitting that notification bell ensures we can keep delivering this kind of essential knowledge to you.
We in this community, we often define our ultimate goal with the rule of 25. It's a precise, quantifiable figure based on our yearly expenses that dictates our magical FI number.
But what if? What if the most important number in your life isn't the total value of your investments, but the number of internal dependencies you've successfully eliminated?
The dependencies on status, on approval, on the next dopamine hit, on keeping up with the Joneses. That leaves us with this final unresolved mystery of wealth. We obsessively calculate our FI number down to the last penny based on the 4% rule. We're chasing certainty in a world that is fundamentally uncertain. But perhaps the truest measure of wealth isn't the size of your portfolio, but the number of days you can live without worrying about money at all. A state that's achieved not through financial excess, but through emotional and behavioral sufficiency. That's the moment where the pursuit finally stops, and genuine lasting freedom can actually begin.